The floor to the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, some colleagues insisted today in their statements to address the situation in my country under the item entitled "The Situation in the Middle East." Although some countries have meant well while others didn't, it is deeply saddening that none of the speakers has mentioned the terrorist attacks that took place in my country today, including what happened in Homs, which my colleague spoke about, and I speak about the ancient city of Homs, which killed 36 people, in addition to 85 being injured, most of them children. This is just a small sample, and I will show you more about the children that died as a result of the strike that has hit Ash-Shabur district in Damascus, when mortars have struck a school there, which killed 24 children and injured 86. Let me show you some of the children who lost their lives today. While some speakers shed some false tears in this respect earlier today. Mr. President, once again, some delegations insist on delivering elaborate statements on the situation in the Middle East by speaking about the situation in my country, Syria, in a misleading and provocative manner that would only help extremism and terrorism in Syria and in the region at large, and in the service of distracting from the essence of this item devoted essentially in finding means to put an end to the Israeli occupation of Arab territories, including the Syrian Golan. In this respect, and in continuation of the pictures that I've shown at the beginning of my statement, such armed terrorist forces that have killed dozens today in Damascus and Homs are described by some colleagues as moderate opposition. They call those moderate opposition, and they provide them with arms. In this respect, I would like to point out that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey and other Western countries, members in this council, contribute to this dubious approach by asking last month to convene 2 meetings on Syria at the General Assembly. The first coincided with the Security Council meeting devoted to listening to the periodic briefing by the Secretariat on the situation in the Middle East, whereas the second coincided with the meeting of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. Thus, they have attempted to distract from the Palestinian question under this item, the situation in the Middle East, and to play a negative role when it comes to the Syrian question. This is a clear evidence of their hypocrisy. For us not to be part of this outrageous attempts that aim to kill our conversation today, chiefly devoted to putting an end to the Israeli occupation, once again, I will not reply under this item to those delegations that violate the Charter and the principles of the international law by providing shelter and supporting and arming, training of terrorists and mercenaries, as well as facilitating their infiltration into Syria through borders with neighboring countries, while spreading terrorism, destruction, and extremism in my country, Syria, and their earnest endeavors to spoil any Syrian-led peaceful solution. It has become ridiculous for some states that don't even have a charter or a parliament, where women are deprived from their fundamental rights. When such delegations speak about the importance of establishing democracy in Syria, where the vice president of the country is a woman. How ridiculous. Some delegations that have become addicted to shedding Syrian blood throughout the past 3 years have been competing to ask to convoke conferences, sessions, and meetings to promote misleading reports on the situation in Syria. Some of them today have resorted to crying wolf in a theatrical, amateurish, imperfect manner about the situation of the Syrian people, whereas they have not touched upon, even with one word, to the question of putting an end to the Israeli occupation of the occupied Syrian Golan, as if reclaiming the Golan is not among the Syrian people's rights, and as if the Golan is not an occupied Syrian territory on which yearly a number of resolutions are issued that call upon Israel to withdraw from it to the borders of the 4th of June 1967. When it comes to Israeli settlements in Israel and the suffering of the Syrian people under occupation in the Golan for the past 50 years, why do such states not mention the heinous suppression and racial discrimination, as well as detention and torture and deprivation of natural resources, including oil, gas, and water? The Syrian citizen under occupation in the Golan is not treated in Israeli hospitals if he refused to carry an Israeli identification card. He cannot study in schools in Arabic in accordance with the Syrian curriculum if he does not hold an Israeli ID. Education in Arabic is prohibited there, be it according to the Syrian or any other curriculum. In addition, the Israeli occupation forces don't allow the Syrian Red Crescent to work in the occupied Golan, and it prohibits it from establishing its clinics and hospitals there based on the resolutions of the international movement of the Red Crescent and the Red Cross societies that go back to 1911. In addition to the fact that the occupation forces have built a racial segregation wall to the east of the Magdal Shams Syrian city, and it refused to submit maps on the landmines it had planted in the Golan to international organizations, although those have killed more than 726 Syrian citizens, including 227 children. Mr. President, the assistance and support given by Israel to terrorist groups, including those affiliated with the Qaeda in the disengagement area in the occupied Syrian Golan, is a flagrant violation of the resolution of 1974, in addition to the mandate of UNDOF and the international law. Israel has gone as far as to build a field hospital near the separation line in the Golan. Its prime minister visited injured terrorists treated in Israeli hospitals and insisted on their return to the separation line in the occupied Syrian Golan to follow their terrorist activities there. The Israeli assistance given to terrorists subjects the life of UN staff working there to danger and undermines their effectiveness. All this is called moderate opposition, as I said before. Such terrorist organizations repeatedly have abducted peacekeepers, including the Filipino battalion, and we have sent reports in this respect to DPKO, including all details, and we called upon them to carry out official investigations in this respect. However, DPKO, till this very moment, has not provided us with the results of such investigations, provided that they have carried them out in the first place. Mr. President, Israel has not only provided logistic support to the terrorists, but it has directly interfered with military forces more than once. For example, last month it shelled a school and a mosque in Al-Hamidiyya village in the occupied Syrian Golan in a flagrant violation of international law, which exposes once again the coordination taking place between the Israeli occupation forces and the terrorist groups, exactly as Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Turkey are doing. There is a clear alliance between those three countries on the one hand and Israel on the other hand. And their cooperation with several terrorist groups in an attempt to destroy Syria, shed the blood of its people, and suppress the prospects of establishing an independent Palestinian state. If a colleague before me described my country as a sisterly country, he's a liar, because we in Syria, we don't want this alleged fraternity. We don't want him or his regime that sheds the blood of our people. We don't want a terrorist, criminal fraternity. Mr. President, we should not deceive ourselves or the world, and everybody knows for sure that Israel, as an occupying force that has been based on occupation and expansion, has never been concerned with peace. It occupied the Syrian Golan and Jerusalem. It has encroached upon various countries of the region, violated the international law and the Charter of the United Nations relentlessly, and it has attacked the holy sites of Muslims and Christians alike, and now it is trying to usurp Al-Aqsa Mosque in an attempt to establish a Jewish state of Israel, to void Palestine of its population and put an end to the right of return. It manipulates when it comes to peace negotiations and initiatives under the pretext that it calls security concern, to devote its efforts to occupation and to forcing a status quo that cannot be changed. How can Israel, after all that, speak about peace? How could it call upon peace while it has all these practices that undermines the basic principles of peace, isn't it insolent for Israel to claim that the removal of any settlement is a painful matter that it cannot tolerate, while the persecution of the whole people of Palestine is acceptable? Thank you, sir.
Representative of the Syrian Arab Republic for